It's Kemi versus Jenrick. Whoever loses, we win. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon, and this is NonCensored. Hello and welcome to NonCensored, the podcast that wraps up all the best bits from my very real daily radio show into one easy-to-digest highlights package. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon, and I'm joined as ever by my producer, Martin. And what a show we have for you this week, eh, Martin?
Oh, yes, indeed. We were joined by Grant Shapps, who ran James Cleverly's ultimately unsuccessful campaign to be leader. A very special guest joined us to appraise the remaining candidates, and we have a very personal edition of Apology Watch. But before we go any further, we must say thank you to Kane Needham, who signed up to our Patreon this week. Kane will be getting every show early and without adverts, as well as every segment in video and some bonus podcasts, as well as the warm, fuzzy feeling inside from knowing that you're helping to support the show. We're 107 episodes in now. You know what we're about, and if you think the work we do is worth £1.20 a week, then please do consider heading over to patreon.com/noncensored and signing up.
That's NonCensored. NonCensored. We've been hearing that a lot of our fans have been signing up to a different Patreon, and look, all I'll say is that from what my sister tells me, those photos are definitely not of Martin. But on to this week's show, and as ever, there were so many great bits in the daily radio show that we don't have time to include here. For example, following Piers Morgan apologising for something one of his guests said and editing her out of his pretend TV show that he puts on YouTube, we spoke to someone who said she had first-hand knowledge of how Piers, the free speech warrior, runs his affairs.
And we are happy to acknowledge to Mr. Morgan and his many, many legal representatives that we do not agree with the claims made in that segment, and we accept that they were lies. So we will never, ever, ever broadcast them ever again.
Yes, not even the bit about,
Especially not that bit.
Oh, what a shame. I actually thought it made Piers seem quite fun. But let's start instead with the failure of James Cleverly's leadership campaign, and who better to speak to about it than the man who ran it, Grant Shapps, who joined us shortly after the news broke. Let's take a listen. Hello, Grant Shapps. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Harriet. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's wonderful. I mean, who would have thought after you lost your seat in July that we'd have you in the studio? But we're having you in today to talk about the fact that you've been the campaign manager for James Cleverly, who sadly has been now knocked out of the race. How are you feeling?
Well, the public favourite, the people's favourite, the membership's favourite, it is a shock. It is a shock, but it just goes to show, sometimes people don't know what they need and what they want.
Do you think there were some flaws to the campaign you ran?
No, I wouldn't say there were flaws in the campaign. There were more flaws in the way people responded to the campaign.
Right.
And, this wasn't done in a vacuum. It was not just me who worked on the campaign. We decided to move towards this tactical approach. It's always good to use tactics. And a couple of my colleagues, Michael Green, Corin Stockheath, Sebastian Fox, we thought that what we'd do would get people to vote tactically for Jenrick, because Jenrick is the most beatable and most likely not to win.
Right, those names you just mentioned there, Grant, they do sound familiar, but they're
very
not
successful businessmen and trusted advisors of myself. Not in a professional capacity, of course, just trusted people who I run all my ideas past.
Right.
Well, producer Martin is looking those names up. Talking to you about your tactical voting. So this was reported in the Telegraph, the best paper of them all, that perhaps you tactically suggested that people vote for Kemi Badenoch instead, and it backfired somewhat.
We thought we'd get people to vote for the other ones, tactically though.
Yeah.
And basically my team, these chaps and I went around and said, vote for the other ones, but also vote for Cleverly. And what seems to have happened is people have got very confused with the tactical voting and have voted for the people who we didn't want them to vote for. But we said, there's 121 MPs, 40 votes each. You need 40 to win. 20 people vote for Kemi, but we bumped that up by another 20 by getting the people who are going to vote for Jenrick to vote. Then that takes 20 away from Jenrick, 20 goes to Cleverly. And
yes, this
Right.
is
when it was explained to me,
It
made
sounds
total sense.
escalate,
a little
isn't it? That's
complicated.
if Corin Stockheath was here, he'd really be able to explain it to you. He's very
well, those names have actually been linked to you, Grant, as
good
pseudonyms.
Good friends.
Well, some have claimed that they are names that you're operating or have operated businesses under.
I'm not a doctor. Oh, businesses, yes. No, I have successful businesses. I have dealings with these men. I work with them closely.
Yes.
Are they not pseudonyms, Grant?
I don't think that's a fair question. Because
Right.
what is a pseudonym?
It's
Really?
just it's a name. It's like a name that you
Exactly.
go
And
Fake names.
these men do have names. They are names. So these are pseudonyms. If your definition of pseudonym is name,
Is Corin a
and-
man? I mean, not that it doesn't really matter at this point. I suppose. Good luck to
well,
them.
what define a man?
Oh,
Oh, no, we don't do that
no,
on this
I don't.
podcast.
I feel very
No,
Well,
no,
thank goodness.
we can't do that here. No,
that.
already
we-
in trouble with Ofcom.
The real tactic here is to step back get the normal candidate to step back from the race, and we'll put in someone like Jenrick or Badenoch who, let's be frank, bonkers, and they'll get in. And then everyone will go, oh, God, what have we done? Maternity leave's gone and all the civil servants are in prison. Bang, comes in James Cleverly, no leadership contest. He gets in, no blood on his hands. All of the tactical voting and the failure of the tactical voting was a tactic.
So you were playing the long game.
Yes, well, I think it's about time, people in politics, we look further ahead. It's very short-sighted, so we're in it for the long haul. Me and Sebastian and Corin and Michael.
Wow. I mean, I suppose you
it-
could say that you've done this very cleverly.
Yeah, I think we have, yes.
No, because because you've done very, what you've done has been done very cleverly.
Yeah, thank you. It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Because
It's
it's
a-
the name of the man.
The name.
that's-
I guess I want to know, Grant, is...
Bloody hell, that's a good slogan.
No,
isn't it?
no, let's move on from that. It's not...
Oh, God, I
it's
can't
not
believe I hoofed
clever.
that one over the bar. Jesus.
Oh, goodness. I mean,
Cleverly. His name is Cleverly.
Cleverly.
God.
You see? No, he's got it now. Is it?
God, that
Sorry, a
is-
bit of a
that is-
distraction.
Because I said, I suggested one of his slogans could be, let's do things more James, and that it doesn't really...
Oh. Yeah, no, that's still a good slogan, though. That's still a good slogan. I wouldn't beat yourself.
But no,
up
we
too much
chose
about
that. We chose not to choose that slogan, and we did so tactically.
Now, how does James Cleverly feel about you? Was he aware of all your tactics? Was he aware that originally there was a tactical voting that went wrong, but also the tactic all the time was to get someone else voted in so that he would be voted in a few years? Was he privy to those ideas? And
One of the things we aimed to do was keep everyone involved slightly unaware of what the tactics were.
right.
So we'd all slightly be surprised by how the tactics turned out. It was sort of the element of surprise, but everybody was surprised at the result. So I don't think James was privy to that, but we did it quite cleverly, I must say, because his name's Cleverly.
Yeah. Grant, do you think there's a chance that maybe your tactics backfired because people didn't know what you were talking about? I mean, there is a chance, of course, that they thought you were talking about Tic Tacs. And I think if I were a politician and someone had been saying tactics a lot, and that we were going to have them for voting, I would have thought it was a little minty prize for having done my vote.
Well, we actually did. You are right. We confusion was the element here, trying to keep everybody slightly off their toes. So we did actually hand out Tic Tacs to the voters and say, if you vote very James, we'll give you these tactics. And they'd say, what? It was quite smart. And then we did a couple of TikToks about the tactics and Tic Tacs. It was all a coordinated strike, and definitely wasn't a complete accidental cock-up in any way. It was all tactics.
Grant, was the tactic, when you were floating different tactics to do, was it ever floated that perhaps people should just vote for James Cleverly?
Do you know what? Not a single one of us came up with that idea, actually. We thought that was too obvious, too sort of simple. This is not a country where you vote for the person who you want, is it, You vote for the person you don't want, which is how Keir Starmer got in.
Yes, that's true. I guess you were looking at what Labour did and came up with your own unique version.
We definitely weren't. We didn't copy Labour in any way. No, we're much better. We like growth and we have friends. And we don't accept gifts.
Oh, really?
Well, I think James Cleverly has accepted gifts, hasn't he? He's got an...
Well, those were... I would describe them as tactical presents rather than gifts.
Right. It's interesting talking to you, Grant, because I'm realising that even I don't really understand what the tactics are.
Well, that's because you're not a politician.
Right. Right, of course.
And you are also, a woman. So it's hard to understand tactics sometimes, but all of our approaches here have been tactical. And a lot of that is down to a friend of mine called Grant Shapps.
Oh, but that's
you. That's you.
No, I'm Grant Shapps.
Oh, I see. You're the plural,
right?
And Grant Shapps is
just a completely different name, completely different person, completely different.
Not a pseudonym.
HMRC registered business. No. Just pseudonym as earlier discussed. Pseudonym, just a name. So yeah, undeniably a name, but one of them has an S in it, and one of them doesn't. Tactically.
Well, I mean, it's great that you've got so many advisors on hand.
It's really good. I have to say, before we wrap this interview up, during the interview, I have been getting trolled by Sebastian Fox.
Have you?
Yeah, he doesn't like my interview technique with you.
God, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know how he's managed to do that. That's terrible. What platform is he on?
Well, at the moment, it seems to be all of them.
What kind of things is he saying?
He's gone nuclear.
He's gone across all of it. He's on Instagram, X, and Bebo.
What kind of things is he saying to you, Harriet?
He's saying, leave Grant Shapps, plural, alone. That's what he's saying.
Is he? Did he send you any gifts or anything, did he?
He has been sending little gifts.
Oh, God.
He's been sending the one where someone drawing a finger over their neck.
No.
It seems like you've got some powerful friends there that aren't happy with you taking a grilling, Grant.
Look, I'm. We utilize our tactics in different ways. Me and the boys. So be careful we'll out tactic and outmaneuver anybody.
It's been really illuminating, Grant Shapps. Do you think after this anyone else will ever employ you as their tactical campaigns manager again?
No, definitely. If they don't employ me, they'll employ Grant Shapps or Michael Green or Corin Stockheath or Sebastian Fox, I'm sure. One of us will get a job out of it, I am sure. And, if you see that I haven't got a job after this, that, my friends, is another tactic.
Wow.
Can't argue with that, really, can you?
Because the tactic with James Cleverly was for him not to get to the job, so eventually he would get the job.
Well, thank you, Grant. Been illuminating.
Thank you so much. Would anybody like a Tic Tac?
Oh, Yeah, I think I would actually, yeah.
No.
Oh, well, great. Well, all you need to do is send me £50.
The failure of James Cleverly means that, in the words of the always sensible Tim Stanley in The Telegraph, the Conservatives may have just dodged a bullet.
Yes, they've really dodged that bullet by leaping into the path of two out-of-control political locomotives, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick.
Oh, I like that analogy, Martin. It makes them sound powerful and dangerous.
Yes, certainly dangerous.
And both have claimed to be carrying the spirit of Margaret Thatcher, Robert by giving his daughter the middle name Thatcher, and Kemi by being a woman. But who is the real heir to the Iron Lady? Well, we asked Margaret Thatcher herself. Let's take a listen.
Margaret Thatcher, what an absolute pleasure.
Just rejoice. It's wonderful to be here, Harriet. I've been a fan of yours for a very long time, and I know that you have been a fan of mine.
Oh, I have your portrait looking over my desk when I work. I adore you. I think you're wonderful. Don't
tell Keir Starmer where that portrait is. He'll be moving it somewhere else, just you wait.
He will. He will. He will. I mean, what a place to start. How did you feel about that? What an absolute bastard.
Typical Labour. If it's not chained down, if it's not nailed down, they'll move it. Always
Yes.
moving things.
Yes.
But no, I'm glad he's moved in. I'm still waiting to get the Tupperware back that I left there back in 1991. I've sent him a message. I'm hoping he'll forward it to my home address now.
Now, Margaret, just to clear things up, because there'll be a lot of our listeners who will think that you've died.
Yes.
Was trying to think of a less, blunt way of saying it. But can you clear things up, just for some of our slower listeners?
As your listeners will be very aware, don't believe everything you read in the liberal media. You have one fallout with Rupert Murdoch, and before you know it, you're 6 feet under. But I'm alive and well and still very much pulling the chains and the ropes in all of Westminster.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful.
I mean, it's an exciting exclusive for us to have. I've got to say, Mrs. Thatcher, I haven't always agreed with your policies, but it's wonderful to hear you on such fine form.
Wonderful. And why have you not agreed with me?
Oh, well, no, it's just that, some of the things that you've done have been, they weren't particularly kind to the poorer people.
Of course not, dead, but you treat them mean, you keep them keen. That's how I managed to win 3 elections.
Right, okay.
That's what we need. Fighting talk. That's what we're missing from today's politics.
Now, of course, there is a lot of fighting talk going on, though, in the current Tory leadership race. And I suppose this would be the thing that we really want to hear your point of view on. Margaret,
Yeah.
I mean, where do you stand on it all? Is there anyone you're rooting for? Do you have strong opinions about the contestants?
Of course I do. I always have very strong opinions. I am the Iron Lady after all. I think the most surprising thing for me was I was very surprised that the Conservative Party was still going at all. After the recent election, I thought we'd moved on, and as like everybody, I voted Reform. And I very much welcome the new leader of the right, Nigel Farage. But I did manage to take a look at Kemi Badenoch, I believe that's their name, and Robert Gendrick. Is that their name as well? I believe I was there at a christening service for his daughter. They wanted to use my middle name, I remember that. But no, I don't think any of them are a worthy successor to me, but I think the most worthy successor is Keir Starmer. He's promised a lot. He'll deliver nothing, and he'll manage to rip off the old people and the poor over the next few years. That's true Thatcherism right there.
Oh, wow. Margaret, what an absolute exclusive. And to think, I mean, Robert Jenrick, in evoking your name by calling his child Thatcher, I mean, that's really something. How sad that he hasn't won you over with that.
I know, but if you say my name 3 times in a mirror, I will appear as well.
Oh, that's so lovely. That's what we need, isn't it, producer Martin? Just Margaret Thatcher appearing you in front of a mirror.
We could
Indeed,
take this
it
for
is.
our Halloween special. Indeed.
It is coming close. Margaret Thatcher, what do you like to do for Halloween?
I like to close the shutters, switch up all the lights, and pray to God that none of the children in the local neighbourhood come knocking, because you get nothing for free in this life.
No, it's true. It's true. So, looking at the Conservative Party, I mean, I do want to sort of touch a bit later on your views of reform. I mean, what do you make of the whole leadership race? I mean, Tom Tugendhat, gone. James Cleverly, gone.
Gone. I thought they couldn't scrape the barrel anymore after Sunak and Truss, but they've really got to the bottom. And at the moment, it's just wood. It's the shavings of the wood. They are really scraping the bottom. But I think if someone's got to win, I think it probably will be Kemi.
Right.
Because she seems like the most evil, and I think that's what we're looking for in a leader of the party.
Right, yes.
I mean, when you say evil, you sort of mean commendable.
Wicked.
Don't you?
I mean wicked, I mean evil, I mean completely oblivious to the needs of the general public. That's what I look for. That's always my motto.
I've got to say, it's very refreshing to have this level of openness and honesty. I think there's a lot of people that would, in politics these days, just try and pretend that it's all for the good of the people. So it's actually quite nice to have you talking about the evil that you're, even though I'm not really pro-evil, I do like the fact that you're refreshingly honest about it.
Oh, of course, dear. And also actions speak larger than words. So, of course, all of my actions were definitely to abuse the poor and the needy. But I did it for their own good, I think, for their own good.
Oh, yes,
I think that's often it, isn't it? It's doing it for their own good, and people don't understand this.
People don't know what they want. They think they want big houses, but then they're not going to be able to afford to heat them. They think they want the nice holidays abroad, but the reality is nobody enjoys the French. Nobody knows what they want. That's the problem with today's modern society. Keep them locked up, keep them chained to a desk, keep them uneducated. That should be the way forward for modern Britain.
What an absolutely beautiful picture you do paint. I have to say.
Like a Dickensian novel. He really had the right idea. Workhouses and begging for more.
Just going back to Kemi Badenoch, now she's had very clear views on sort of gender issues.
Yes.
And some of our listeners won't know this, but you've actually become very big on the LGBTQ scene in the last few years. And I wonder if there's some conflict there.
Not at all. I mean, if anybody spent any time at a Conservative Party conference, they know that it's filled with homosexuals.
Oh, lovely.
I have many happy memories of my time in Brighton, down the seafront, with all of the fags from the team, taking them out, singing, dancing, and showing them that the lady is for turning on the dance floor.
Oh, I love it, Margaret. Do you know, sometimes I like to go to a gay bar with my friend Darren, and I wear a little wig so that I won't get stopped by fans. And we have such a lovely time.
Lovely evening.
Such fun.
The music's always good, the drinks are cheap, and it's just nice to have a dance without being hit on all the time, don't you find?
Oh, definitely. A safe space.
And there's never a queue for the toilets. Not for the women's toilets, anyway.
No, yes.
Now they're gender neutral is becoming a bit of a bloodbath. Yes.
Yeah, this is a problem.
Well, yes. I mean, it's wonderful to have also such a positive take on politics at the moment. I mean, obviously, Keir Starmer at the moment has been pushing this slightly bleak perspective that things are not great at the moment and they're not going to be good for a long time. And even when we get there, it probably won't be that good. Do you have anything that perhaps our listeners could take solace in? If from your time in politics,
of course,
some inspirational thoughts.
Always take solace in the fact that if it's going badly for the Labour Party, then it's going well for us. So yes, they're doing badly, but then things are always locking up as a result of that. If they do badly, we do better. And things can always get worse.
That's so good, isn't it? So hopefully in 4 years, we'll be back with maybe Kemi or Robert leading the country. Who can say?
Or yourself or myself. I'm always willing to do it, Cameron, and come on and be your foreign secretary.
Margaret, that means a lot because I've always seen myself, really, as rather similar to yourself. I really do, like a sort of little Margaret in waiting.
Oh, you do flatter me. I'd love a little Margaret. I really would.
Yes.
We must have dinner sometime and we can swap some stories. I can give you all my tips on how to be a wonderful Prime Minister. I do think you've got a glittering future ahead of you, dear.
Thank you so much. I only have one more thing I really want to ask you about, and that's about standing up to the trade unions. I wonder what you make of figures like Mick Lynch, who is so sort of northern and
yes,
in your face.
I've heard a lot of interviews done by Mick Lynch, but unfortunately I don't speak Northern, so I have not been able to hear any of his opinions. But then I never really did listen to the general public, and I have no intention of starting now. My advice with him would be to get on with his work, get the trains running, and get the country running.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I think we've all learnt a lot this interview. And it's absolutely made my week. Thank you.
Not at all. And remember, dear, no matter who you are, where you go, or whom you love, you're all Thatcher's children, and she loves you very, very much.
Oh.
beautiful.
If you're finding the adverts in the show annoying and like the idea of supporting us directly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/noncensored, where not only will you get the show without adverts, you'll also get the episodes before everyone else, as well as videos of all our segments and exclusive bonus podcasts. Finally, we run a regular segment on NonCensored called Apology Watch, in which our diversity correspondent and so-called comedian Ishan Akbar rates public apologies. But when someone from the NonCensored team messes up in public, it's important for us to be straight with you, our listeners, our people, and apologise. And then we use that apology as content, as we rate it in this week's Apology Watch.
I'm so not sorry that it's made me feel sorry for the not apology I'm sorry about. So I'm sorry not sorry that the not nature of the sorry isn't sorry enough, or not.
2 weeks ago, we had entertainment reporter Henny Fairground reporting on the new Philip Schofield TV show. But one eagle-eared listener, Philip Powles, took to social media to say, "Can you tell that lady that trying to pretend to be Welsh to get an easy laugh is cheap and tawdry?" Obviously, after this, we conducted a thorough inquiry and discovered that Henny is, in fact, not Welsh. We at NonCensored would like to apologise for not checking her credentials more carefully. But more importantly, Henny would like to apologise. Let's take a listen.
Right, deep breath. Firstly, are you okay? I hope so. Wir mor sori bod fi wedi esgus cael acen Gymraeg. O'n i'n meddwl bydde fe'n helpu fi sefyll mas mewn diwydiant sy'n ofnadw o gystadleuol. Ond nawr wi'n sylweddoli bod e jyst yn beth chip a di-chwaith iawn i wneud, a wi a naddo i wneud yn well yn y dyfodol.
Well, what did you make of that, producer Martin?
Well, it was fun, funky and fresh. I give it 5 out of 5 on the apology scale.
Could you translate some of it for me? I don't know what it was. I couldn't quite make out the details of it.
I think what happened there is that Henny actually spoke to us in the Welsh language, which I think was actually very touching.
Sounds like cultural appropriation, though, doesn't it?
No, it's fine. You're allowed. You can learn this on Duolingo. It's it's encouraged, I think, to learn other languages. So that part wasn't probably too problematic. I mean, there is of course the larger question here. I mean, of whether it was appropriate for her to behave in such a way. She was, we were covering the Philip Schofield story at the time, a very important news story, and there's a lot of division around that story. So to make light of it,
trivialise it by putting on a silly Welsh accent,
any kind of little joke, in order to make light of a rather important story on a very significant day, the day, of course, that Philip Schofield was going into the desert.
Well, I think that's why, isn't it? We did talk about getting her actually on the show to talk about it. But then we thought, no, it's better that you keep your distance. You've done enough, Henny Fairground.
And I feel better just
with your silly pretend accent.
Yeah, I don't really like sort of giving my full opinion when the person's in the room, to be honest.
Yes.
Prefer to just, there's a safety here. Can sort of deny anything that I don't like the sound of in hindsight. But no, of course, an apology is the main thing. It's out there. It's basically...
Well, it's about accountability, isn't it, producer Martin? And at the end of the day, do we want an apology or do we want dialogue? We want the apology. And that's what we got.
Yeah, well, usually it's heads, isn't it? Butts. That's what you're after. You want butts.
I want butts.
You've said it a million times. You want butts. And that's
I do. I always want. I mean, it's no secret that I want butts.
big butts, small butts, butts the size of your head.
Yeah, I feel I've been very, very open about my need and want for butts.
Some sorry asses.
No, not so much sorry asses. Don't like sorry asses, but some strong butts. I don't want sorry asses, you know.
I think it's worth flagging that the real problem here is that Henny did the offending accent on our show. You know, it took place right here, and that's on us. In a way, if it had taken place, you know, in her own spare time, on her own social media channels, that's a different thing. You know, we can't police someone's...
We're not accountable for that.
We're not censored. We are not censoring people. But here on NonCensored, we take it very seriously what people do say.
Yeah, we could have censored her here.
Yes.
You know, she could have at least done a Scottish accent.
Oh, really? That would have been... Do you think that would have been better?
Fine. Yeah, I think that's fine.
I've got to say, Harriet, that as long as we've been running Apology Watch, it's actually quite big of us. Not all of the media does that, takes accountability.
No,
So,
they don't.
If anything, I'm just going to, our readers, our watchers can't, viewers there, that's what we call them, probably can't hear this, but they certainly can't see it, but
You're patting yourself on the back, producer Martin.
just patting myself on the back a little, just a little.
Do you know what? Usually
being
I'd
one of the
mock you
good
for that,
guys.
but I think... I don't know if the
a
listeners
little
can
pat.
hear that,
Yeah,
but
no, yours
I'm
is-
also doing it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. It's nice to be one of the good guys. So
Here's
few
the
of
good
us
guys.
around.
We take it up. We go, yes, we address that there's been a problem here. We're going to address it head on.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, hopefully we've set the record straight.
I think so. I
suppose
think we've done everything now.
The question that I'd pose to you, Harriet, is
Yes.
what could we do in future to avoid this from happening again?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think what we can do is to report on honestly and truthfully on the bad things people do without acknowledging too much
Of our own
relationship
culpability. Yes.
with
and
that.
also, we don't want to stand too close to them once they've done something stupid, do we?
No, I don't think we want to do that. No.
Yeah, just sort of get rid of them.
Otherwise, then it becomes a story, doesn't it? It's better if you just sort of say,
Oh,
yeah,
I just work here. I just work here, mate. Don't come for me.
that guy was a bad un, and not mention that perhaps,
I bloody love the Welsh. I'm always going out for a Welsh. Pop out of a...
You don't need to say that, producer
No, I
Martin.
do. It's true.
No. No one believes that. It's not necessary.
It's not that rare for me. It's a common thing.
They're strange folk, and I don't even really think they're a real country.
Yes. Well, all in all, at least she didn't say anything about Israel and Palestine, eh? God. That would have been terrible.
Well, I had some technical issues there, so I didn't actually hear what you said. But I think that's for the best, and actually I think that's quite fitting, because all I heard was a bit of stuff and then Israel-Palestine, and hopefully that's what the listeners will hear as well. And actually, as it occurs to me, I'm not sure I heard anything that you said or anything on this show. I don't even really think I heard Henny, to the point I couldn't even really detect her accent. So really, there is no culpability here.
Well,
I'm just a poor, deaf
boy
person.
from a poor family. Yes. Oh, God. It's like watching.
That's
a
right. Let's end on some lyrics.
Master at work.
Well, that's it for now. We'll be back next week. So in the meantime, like, subscribe, tell your friends, follow the Out of Context Non-Censored Blue Sky account, and remember that there's loads of stuff on Patreon at patreon.com/noncensored. So if you enjoy the show, please do support us if you can. With thanks to Rosie Holt, Brendan Murphy, Will C. Montefiore, Matt Tedford, Eslit Sears and Ed Morrish. I'm Harriet Langley-Swindon, and we'll be back next week with more Non-Censored.